The Special Investigating Unit has secured an order interdicting the Eastern Cape Health Department from continuing to implement its controversial 10 million rand scooter project. The project was unveiled by Eastern Cape Health MEC Sindiswa Gomba and Health Minister Dr. Kaizer in June, but was later marred with allegations of financial irregularities. The court has ordered that no payments be made on the scooters. The respondents are further restrained from taking any further steps towards the implementation of the tender. Now, for more on the story, I'm joined on the line by SIU Spokesperson Kaizer Kganyago. Kaizer, thank you so much for your time. Now, what were the issues that raised concerns for you as the SIU?
We were called in as part of the proclamation R23 to go and look at the procurement in relation to that specific tender. And what we then found was that processes were not followed in as far as this matter is concerned. But what worried us is while we were busy investigating, we got wind of some kind of push to have the payment done on this contract. And because of that, we felt it was important for us to then go in and make sure that this payment is not done by the Department of Health to the supplier in this particular instance. But also, we wanted not only to stop there, but we wanted to say nothing should be done in that contract while we are still investigating and finalizing our investigation, because we don't want a situation at the end where somebody will come and say, but I've been doing work and I've produced more of these scooters, when we are investigating and we are finding irregularities in this particular contract. That is why it was important to have this order even today.
Now, how effective will this court order enable you to investigate this matter further?
It will assist us in a sense that we are not going to be worried, firstly, about money being distributed to other people, but also we are not going to get worried in a case where we get to part B of this application where we want to set aside this contract. We are not going to get worried to the fact that whether are we going to get the money or not, because the money will be securely in the Department of Health in the Eastern Cape. Because that is what I've been talking about when I said it was important for the President to give us this proclamation in advance, because it helps us to sweep in quickly and stop the monies before they are paid, so that we don't have to incur a lot of legal hassles later on when you've got to go looking for people and their properties after the effect.
Now, I have to ask you this before we continue. I mean, straight after that launch where we saw the health minister also being part of it, we also understood after a lot of the community members and provincial community members, obviously not for this project and saying that those scooters in particular were not up to standard. We then got an impression that there was no tender and there was no contract and monies were not being, going to be paid to that particular company. Now you say that you've gotten wind that monies were going to be paid. How so? Was there a tender?
No, there was a contract between the department and the supplier. In this case, a company called Femcom Pty Limited. Therefore, that contract was there, and they have started delivering some of these scooters, and the payment was going to be made. That is why it was important for us to interdict the payment from it being paid, because we are already finding irregularities. But as I can say to you, there was a contract between the two. Whether it followed processes is another issue.
Now, how has the reaction been from the province, particularly the health MEC?
We have served them when we were making this application, and all of them, as you can see in our statement, all of them, especially the Department of Health, did not oppose this application, which basically means that there was no resistance in the court. It was only us, and everybody just sent confirmation of receiving the service and then indicated that they will comply with the court, because that says that they were cooperating with us to make sure that this is done in a correct manner. And it was very, very important for us to do it this way. And it is in the interest of the public, like we've always said. As the SIU, will do everything in our power to make sure that if there is any money that is being misused, we recover it. But it also is nicer when we stop it before it is paid, because that way we don't have to worry after looking after people after we find that the contract is irregular and the court has set it aside.
Now that the court order has been granted, you said that you will now start investigating. So what are the next steps in as far as that investigation is concerned?
We have investigated. We have got outcomes already. Therefore, what has happened is part A of the matter that we've put before the tribunal, which was dealing with the freezing, because this one was urgent of the payment and making sure that nothing happens in this contract. Then the second part will then have to come back to the tribunal and deal with part B, which will now deal with the contract, whether it was regular or irregular, and we've got to give our reasons. Then once we prove to the court that it was irregular with evidence, we can then set it aside. Once we reach that stage of setting it aside, it means now the contract is null and void, and all the expenses that were done around it will then be irregular.
Now, this is but one contract and one province. You know, tell us what's happening currently nationally. We understand when you were in the Western Cape, you had said that you are investigating or have set your sights for to investigate 700 companies, you know, with irregularities within this PPE procurement and tenders to the tune of more than 7 billion rands.
No, definitely, we're having so many of the contracts that we are looking into. And I must hasten to say that when we are dealing with this matter, we are not saying all the 7.5 billion that we are dealing with is irregular. We are saying when we look, for example, in Gauteng alone, we find that we have got about 200 or 200 plus contracts that we are looking into. Therefore, we check each and every one of them to see whether it was entered into regularly, and then we are then in a position to ascertain ourselves. But at the moment, the value that we are talking about is more than 7.5 billion that we are looking into countrywide. For example, in the Eastern Cape, it is not only this scooter that we are looking into. We are also looking at the tablets that were bought. We are looking at the issues that were relating to Amatola, for example, the water board in relation to the tanks that they gave to the schools during this time. We are doing the same, for example, with the water board, the Rand water board in Gauteng. And therefore, there are so many of them. The Talana project in Limpopo, we are also investigating. Therefore, at the moment, we have done our bit, and then on the 2nd of September, we gave the interim report to the president, and now we are gunning for the next 6-weekly update that we will give to the president sometime in October.
Now, as it relates to Gauteng particularly, I mean, there's been some investigations that you did a couple of weeks ago and some months ago. Tell us in particular to the health MEC in Gauteng as well as the president's spokesperson. How far are your investigations on that particular case?
Like I always say, Nati, that we do not investigate people. We investigate in processes. Therefore, we are not the ones who, for example, agreed with them to be put on special leave or whatever. That is not our terrain. We are going very well with our investigation. We are briefing whoever needs to be briefed accordingly. And we can safely say that we are proceeding very well with our investigations in Gauteng, and we hope to conclude them in a not so far near future. But at the moment, we are working very well, and we are getting the kind of information and cooperation that we need from the Gauteng government.